Hi, Dad.
Hi, Shanti Joy Gold.
Hi. It is so cool to have you here.
Yes, it's very exciting. I brought marshmallows
Oh,
for the campfire.
that's great. Oh
But
my God. Do you know what that makes me think of right away?
why?
So my dad and my stepmom, Carol, have a fire pit at their house in Woodstock, and we were going to hang out by the fire pit, and I was going to take care of it because I enjoy building the fire. So started gathering things to make the fire for the fire pit. And I saw this one piece of wood and I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. So I grabbed it and I, broke it up, put it in, got everything lit, and we were sitting there. And then Dad started to talk about this piece of wood that he had hand whittled for roasting marshmallows by the fire pit. And I immediately realized that I had just trashed and incinerated his hand whittled piece
Yes.
of wood. So thank you for reminding me of that.
We went out and bought metal forks after that.
Safe. Very
Oh.
good thinking.
Being very exciting. I'm very nervous. I've never been on national TV before.
I've never also known you to be nervous, so I don't believe you. So I think about the favorite times in my life, and no exaggeration, sitting around anywhere just talking to my dad, philosophizing, chatting, catching up are among the top moments. It doesn't matter where we're sitting, but I talked about this in one episode, my best of both worlds stories. I lived with my mom during the week. My folks were separated when I was around 5. Dad on the weekends. It was a house in the woods in Woodstock, specifically a cottage with no electricity. And so we would sit out on the deck at night with zero light and just look up at the stars and talk, or out in the meadow. We would sometimes sit by the fireplace. We would swing in the hammock and there'd be water rushing underneath us while we swung and chatted. And when I thought about all that coming into the podcast, I realized the feeling that I'm trying to create here, that I hope I'm creating here, is that same feeling I had just hanging out with my dad, looking up at the stars, looking into the fire. And
No, excuse me, you might not remember, but one of our best conversations that we ever had was during a rain delay at a Yankee game.
oh, that's true.
You used to take me to Yankees games on Father's Day when you were at the Daily News, and there was a 2-hour rain delay, and there was nowhere to go and nothing to do, and we had fantastic, wonderful conversation for
Yeah.
those 2 hours, which I never forgot. Yeah, it's always been easy to talk to you, even when you were teeny weeny.
Thanks. My dad is, if anyone knows me or anyone even who's followed me even a teeny bit on social media knows, he's really my anchor, my go-to guy by nature in the wild, if left to my own devices. Before I did a lot of work on myself, pretty intense, type A, overthinker, take myself just a bit too seriously, to the point that my dad bought me a shirt that says currently overthinking. And my mom, wonderful, loving cheerleader for me, great moral character, creative, so many wonderful things, also shared all of those same traits that I just described. So my dad has always been the balance, calm, zen, optimistic, goofy, funny, sarcastic, but never in a mean way, kind, smart, curious, great listener, also a champion. And I don't know where I'd be without you. I love you very much.
Thank you. I love you too.
Yeah.
Wow. Who is that guy?
I don't know, but I'll introduce you at some point. He's also an amazing husband to my stepmother, Carol, whom I lovingly refer to as Poopsie, which is probably a story for another day. He's always been there when I needed him, and there have been plenty of those moments. And you've always said that there was something that you thought was your job as my dad. What was the way you phrased it?
Yeah, to make you laugh, get you to calm down, not too serious, and just to enjoy life and step back. And
Yes. Which speaks to everything I just said. And I will just add, my dad is also creative, an active musician. He's published 2 books. He's an amazing photographer, which is a trait he inherited from his dad, my grandfather. He's got endless interests and pursuits and charitable and philanthropic work that he does. He's also the busiest retired guy I know. It's hard for me to believe we're here doing this together because it's almost too good to be true. So welcome officially.
I'm happy to be here. very excited.
And this is your chance to embarrass me publicly in any way that you might like. I used to, when I was working with sales reps, if I would encounter them in the parking lot, they were pulling out to go out on the road, I would casually step in front of their car and kind of say, okay, now's your chance, right? Similarly, this is your chance. You don't need to do anything, or definitely not at this moment, but just keep that in mind, okay?
I won't be scared to do that.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with professionally. Back in the day before you became the busiest retired guy I know, what'd you do?
I was always an ad guy. I was always in advertising from the time I was 15 years old in Cleveland, Ohio. Started off as an office boy in an advertising agency that was just 3 people, the boss, secretary, and me. And when I would run errands, I would learn about the place I ran errands to. If I ran an errand to the printer, I would learn all about what the printer does. Art studio, I would learn all about what the art studio does. Radio commercials, got to watch them. I would go in after my high school classes and later after my college classes. In return for my services, I got instruction from the boss, who was 25 years old. My first radio commercial that I wrote, he said was very good, except that it's 8 minutes long and it's only supposed to be 60 seconds. So you need to work on it a little bit. That's the kind of training I got. Through the years there at that Cleveland agency, I really learned about writing and producing commercials, about handling promotions, and I started winning awards. Advertising was very rewarding for me. So later in New York, and then with other agencies, and then my own agency, I got to hang around really bright, creative people. None of it ever rubbed off, unfortunately, but I got to walk.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe tomorrow you'll wake up and there it'll be.
Hope so.
Yeah. What might you want to share about yourself personally, either something that lights you up or something people may not know about you?
My favorite thing in the world is making people laugh. I think it's one of the most important things in life during good times and especially during bad times. If I'm part of an organization, I try and always have a joke night or two.
Yeah.
Whenever I run a meeting as head of something, I always start off with a prayer and a joke at the beginning of every meeting. People now expect me to tell jokes, and it's a lot of pressure, but making people laugh really brings me joy. There's nothing negative about making people.
That's for sure. Of course, now, what joke would you like to share?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I don't have.
Come on. Yes, you do. You always do.
This one is of a widow sitting on a bench in Miami Beach, and this good-looking elderly kind of guy comes and sits down on the bench near her, and she looks over and she says, excuse the accent, "You're new here. I haven't seen you here before." And he said, I've been away. And now I came back. She said, "Oh, you were away. Why were you away?" He said, "I was in prison." "You were in prison? Why were you in prison?" He said, "For murder. I was in there for murder." "Oh, my goodness. What happened?" He said, "I killed my wife, and they put me in jail for 20 years, and I just got out." She said, "Oh, you killed your wife?" He said, "Yes, I did." She said, "So, you're single?"
Oh, thank you. All's right with the world.
Pressure, pressure.
Oh, you did beautifully. You did beautifully. Thank you for that. So, your pronouns are
He, him.
great. And this podcast is a campfire style interview series where underrepresented people talk about the extra layers we navigate as we wind our way into the already complicated career landscape. In your navigating your career as an outsider story, you are a Vietnam veteran with a story that you will share that really impacted your worldview. I actually want to pivot pretty quickly to that because there's so much that I'd like to cover with you today. So as far as going to Vietnam, you could describe this better than I can. I had another veteran on the podcast, Brett D'Alessandro. He was in very active combat right on the front lines. Can you describe your experience in Vietnam?
One of the things I should say is that everybody there was on the front line. There were no front lines. Those little enemy guys were underground everywhere. They would pop up, cause destruction, and go back on some wars. There are front lines. There are no front lines here. But I was in a signal battalion. So my job was to send coded messages back and forth from the middle of the jungle to various places around the country and frankly the world also. So the good thing is even though we're in the jungle surrounded by bad guys, the temperature was 120 every day. So we had to be in air conditioned booths to protect the equipment, not us. At least we were comfortable during our work hours. We were under fire because the enemy tried to destroy our equipment so that we couldn't communicate. That's where we got fired upon and had to fire back.
What was that experience like?
My jungle training was slim. I was trained in communications. Then I was in the Army band, and they called me in and said, "You're not in the Army band anymore. You're now a communications specialist, and you're going to Vietnam." When you're under fire, it's surreal. It's almost like you're watching, at least this is how it was for me. It's almost like you're watching a movie because this couldn't be happening to you. You're this person from the advertising business out here, and here people are shooting at you and destroying things and running around. At night, we would look up into the jungle that we're surrounded by, and there would be helicopters shooting tracer bullets into the jungle. And your first impression was, boy, that's really pretty. And then you say, wait a second, they're shooting at something, and it's very close. Plus, we were sleeping on the ground. There were snakes and all kinds of things that you weren't used to. It was necessary to detach yourself from it.
Yeah.
Else you just run around.
Yeah.
Screaming.
Yeah. Can't even imagine. I know you listened to Brett's episode. How was your experience different from what you understand Brett's to have been?
It's very different in the fact that he was out looking for bad guys to kill. That was his job. He had to do that every single day. You didn't know if the people who were coming toward you were friendly or whether they were the enemy disguised as friendly, and that the children didn't have hand grenades with them. And so that kind of pressure is unfathomable. You're in danger of getting killed or badly hurt every minute of every day.
Yeah.
I did not have to go through that.
And then while that was not your experience, you had what I remember from a very young age. And I think you were amazed that I remember all of the stories, but boy, what an impression. You had a series of experiences.
I should have been or wanted to be someplace where had I been, I would have been killed.
Let's tell a few because they're really remarkable.
First one was when we first arrived there. I was one of the first troops in Vietnam in 1964. Our commanders had no idea what they were doing. We were riding around in trucks with no covers on them whatsoever, wide open. So one day we were making a run into Saigon in 2 trucks. The first truck was filled up. I tried to get in and I wanted to be one of the first ones in. And the guys playfully said, "You got to get the next truck." They kicked me off that truck. And I got in the second truck. And along the road into Saigon, not much of a road, but it was a road, and it was lined with people waving at us. And at this point of the war, we all felt that we were saviors, that we were helping these people, protecting them from the evils of communism and saving their lives and making their lives better. And so we were waved back. And one little boy, about 8 years old or so, was waving at us from the side, and we waved back, and he threw a hand grenade into the first truck. Just lobbed the hand grenade, and everybody in that truck got killed. The hand grenade exploded. I wanted to be in that truck, and I was very angry that I couldn't be. So that was the first time.
And just staying there for 1 second.
Yeah.
Can you reconnect to how that felt in that moment?
Picture that you were me and you were in that truck, and there are no proper adjectives.
No words.
To
Yeah.
describe. No.
Yeah. Okay. That's the first story I remember too. What's the next one?
At one point, we were allowed to go into Saigon on leave, and that was a very big deal, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
Into civilization, all the guys that came back from leave talked about this one hotel where it was beautiful. You got service and clean sheets and good food. It sounded like paradise. And the first thing I did when I got to So I got on, hop off the truck, run over to that hotel and get in line to register. And I was standing in line, and this inebriated sailor came in and pushed me out of line, said, I'm going in line. You have to wait for me. And I wasn't about to have a fight with an inebriated sailor. Even those days, I was pretty patient when it came to stuff like that. Sure, go ahead, step in. Got up to the registration desk, and they said, sorry, that guy in front of you was the last guy. We're full up. I said, there's got to be something, some way I've waited. They said, no, we have no more rooms. That's it. There's a very nice hotel 2 blocks away from here. I'm sure they've got room. So once again, very upset. Trudged over to the other one. Nice hotel, nice and clean. It was okay. Went to bed. About 3:00 in the morning, there was a huge explosion, and I was on the floor in my room. The hotel had just shook so hard. And that explosion came from a garbage truck full of explosives that was driven into the lobby of the other hotel and completely destroyed it and killed almost everybody. And that's where I had wanted to be. So I was very relieved, of course, sad, horrified by what had happened so close to me, but I made it through, got back. Didn't make any kind of connection yet. The last thing was when I got my papers to go home. Nothing more exciting than that. Your time's up here. Tomorrow, you're going home. In order to punish you for getting to go home, they put you on the worst duties. The first duty was KP.
Kitchen patrol.
Kitchen patrol. Had to, all the old cliche things, peel potatoes, pick up things, serve in the line, clean up the garbage. And it was 120 degrees. And I just was furious that they had done this. On top of that, they said, and after that, you have to go on guard duty on the perimeter.
Don't let the door hit you in the...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Enjoy your trip home.
Yeah.
So I stomped around. I did not take the salt pill I was supposed to take. 120 degrees. I passed out. I got heat stroke.
You didn't wear your helmet either. Is that right? Do I remember that detail?
No, did not wear my helmet.
Okay. Heat stroke.
Hell with you guys. And I woke up in my bunk in the tent with people looking down on me and saying, some people would do anything to get out of guard duty. And the guy who was assigned to my guard duty in my place got killed by a sniper on guard duty.
Oh, I just got chills again. Yeah.
There were others too.
Mm-hmm.
This was the final one. Became obvious to me, not just a theory, that there's stuff going on in the universe that we have no idea about. Some things are meant to be, period, end of story. We could do whatever we could do in our little daily lives, try and be good people, try and enjoy ourselves as much as we can, work hard. But in the end, there are certain things that are laid out for us and for everybody and everything that are fait accompli. It's going to happen no matter what. So that's called being a fatalist. You believe that fate's really in charge. There's only so much you could do. It has nothing to do with religion. That's just believe that things are laid out for you. I became a devout fatalist that night, and to the point where waiting to get on the plane to go home, I looked up, I just focused on that door that I was going to be walking up to get on the plane. I was thinking, where do I go next? When I go back home, I could go back to California where I had last lived, or I could go to New York where advertising is and where I've always wanted to be, and try that, see what happens in New York, pick up my career there. So I said, I will let fate decide what happens with the rest of my life. And I flipped the coin and it came up New York. And that's why Shanti and I are talking here right now.
My life is a coin flip. Everyone's life is, though, right?
Yeah.
It's the series of moments, the left turns, the right turns, the things that people do that make all the difference in how the stories unfold. I literally wouldn't be here if it had come up on the other side of the coin.
That's right. And neither would I be here. I'd be somewhere else.
So
and I'd probably be very unhappy.
Yeah. I've asked you this too. You are an optimist. And so you could be a pessimistic fatalist. Where do you feel the optimism comes from?
Being a fatalist takes a lot of the pressure off of you because all you have to do is say, I'll do my best.
Right.
And then what's going to happen is going to happen. So you can't say, I'm scared that bad things are going to happen, or I'm hopeful that good things are going to, what's supposed to happen, that's what's going to happen. And if it's a bad thing, you cope with it. You say, okay, that was supposed to happen. I have no idea why, but I'll take care of it.
Right.
I'm in charge of coping with it the best I can. I'm not in charge of making it happen, but I'm in charge of coping with it.
So the wrestling that a lot of us do with life, I'm going to try to wrestle with this. Your thing is, why wrestle? It's going to play out the way it's going to play out. So skip the wrestle, lean in, do your best, and enjoy it as much as possible.
That's right. There's nothing you could do about yesterday. There's nothing you could do about tomorrow because it hasn't happened. The only thing you could do anything about is right now. And if you worry about tomorrow, you are wasting your time.
Yeah, my dad and I do a column called Tuesdays with Shanti's Dad, which is available on LinkedIn every other week. And we get to philosophize about a lot of this stuff. It aligns perfectly with the coaching that I do and thinking about the past and beating yourself up. And I could have done this differently. What if I had done that? What was I thinking? So much energy goes into that, gets wasted. It's already done. And thinking ahead to the what ifs equally is an energy and time suck. More often than not, the things that you're worried about aren't the things that happen anyway.
90%.
Yeah, 90%. So it's interesting.
Be in the moment.
In the moment. That's been a big one for me, by the way, past couple of years. Getting out of that space that I have lived for a lot of my life that I described up front, enjoying my life more and being more of who I am for myself and for the people around me, and just really appreciating and being grateful. I think you've said that your default attitude is
Correct.
to be grateful, yeah?
Every minute of every day. More than people who almost didn't die. If you almost didn't die, you have to really train yourself and work hard on gratitude. When things are bad, what am I grateful for? No, I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for rainy days and sunny days and beautiful things and ugly things and just waking up every day. None of us have any idea what we're really doing here, but whatever it is, I'm grateful for being here.
How does that differ from who you were as a person going into Vietnam? Because I asked you that. I only knew you as dad, as this optimistic fatalist. And I asked you, were you always that way? And you said, no, I wasn't.
No, I was definitely regretting past decisions that got me in a bad place. I was very fearful of what was going to happen tomorrow. I was fearful because of what had gotten me to Vietnam in the first place. That kind of thing could happen again. That was secretly tearing away at me that things might be okay now, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be terrible tomorrow. So I was really worried about impending disaster in the future. That's what I was like, which is pretty normal for most people.
Yeah.
And afterward, we talked about I wasn't that way anymore.
Yeah, so interesting. Here you are, coin toss, New York, advertising. Talk about some of the ways that this new perspective on life started to show up for you in your career.
One of the things negatively that happened from it was that because I was so grateful for everything, I became too satisfied with my situation.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to make my career better, I was happy I had a good job and supporting my family, and that I got to be creative director and to write and deal with clients. I'm doing okay. At some point, that got to me when I was about 30 years old. It was before Shanti was born.
Okay.
Right before. I finally admitted this is not rewarding as it should be. So now I'll get to the story of the chip on the door that looked like a chicken.
Looked like a chicken.
Yes, it looked like a chicken. When I was first starting in advertising in Cleveland, we were in an office building. You go to the bathroom, close the door, and on that door was a chip. And because there's no place to look except straight ahead, I would look at that chip and say, that chip looks like a chicken. Then I said, wouldn't it be interesting if that were an ad on the door? I would definitely read it. They would definitely know they were talking to a guy. Because of the office building, they would know that a lot of professionals in this building.
Mm-hmm.
And the copy in the ad could be very long because people would be happy to have something to read.
Yeah, temporarily captive audience, yeah?
That's right.
Yeah.
Not just a headline. The audience would be captive and happy to be entertained. So I went back in and told my young boss about this, and he said, "That's a great idea. You should do it." And I was 16 or 17, and I was hoping that he would say, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's form a team." He said, "No, you should do it." Of course, I didn't do it. And through the years, literally the years, I used it as dinner table conversation when we were with couples that we didn't know and meeting new people. I said, "I always had this idea, blah, 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 blah." And everyone would say, "What a great idea. You should do it." So finally, at age 30 in the advertising business, I decided I was going to do it. I didn't want to cut my lifeline, so I kept working at the agency. But while I was working there, I also developed a couple of presentations. And in those days, presentation kits were a suitcase about this big, too big to fit in the picture.
Right.
Weighed about 15 pounds and had a strip film and a tape inside, which never worked right. So I did two of these presentations. One was to landlords of office buildings. And it was a little cartoon presentation. It said, "Hey, thanks for seeing me today. You now own property, which could bring you great income, and you're not using it. It's just sitting there. And I'm here to help you." And the little cartoon landlord on the film strip said, "What is that? What is that?" And the company was Project R for restaurant. Project R, little character would say, "It's the stall doors of the restrooms in your office building. Get out of here. Get out of my office." You're crazy, huh? And then a little character would say, "I understand, but advertisers would be very happy to pay for that space, and you could make a lot of money." And I took this presentation to many developers in New York City, and I got thrown out of a lot of developers' offices. Some of them with a sense of humor, but mostly just, "You're wasting my time."
Two things real quick, because there's so much good stuff in the ways that you're going about doing this at the time. The first thing is that I feel like I heard you say you caught yourself. You were complacent because it's easy when you're like, okay, it's going to be what it's going to be. What you're saying you came to realize is at some point weren't being true to yourself. You were under living what your potential was. So you were catching yourself and really stepping up to be the best version of yourself within this life that was going to unfold.
Yeah. This can't go on as
Yeah.
well, and I could control it.
And as you're getting thrown out of all of these places,
You get used to rejection. You don't take rejection personally, as you well know.
right?
In sales, it's not because they don't like you. It's just that they don't connect with what you have to offer.
Yeah.
So it's not a good match.
Okay. So you're getting thrown out. Then what happened?
One day I went to see Mr. Harry Helmsley, the owner of the Empire State Building and one of the biggest real estate developers in New York and other places as well. He turned out to be a gentle giant of a man, probably 6'4", impeccably dressed, very soft spoken. I went through my presentation to Mr. Helmsley, expecting to get thrown out, and it got quiet. And he said, "Yeah, why not?" I did not have a heart attack. He said, "Of course, you're going to have to do A, B, C, D, and I'll have a contract drawn up, and you could have my buildings." Now it was a business. I was able to go out and get venture capital based on this. People looked at it and said, "Wow, Harry Helmsley's going to do this. Huh, interesting. Let's take a shot." So then I could quit my job because I had income coming in. So then I took the other presentation, and this was designed for advertising agencies. So then rejection, rejection, rejection. Some people were actually insulted that I would even suggest that their client's product would be in a bathroom. I did get advertisers. The original sign that went up in all the restrooms was, "Welcome to the Project R reading room. Please don't stand up." Signs went up, Empire State Building, Lincoln Building. We left one stall with no sign. So if you hated the idea, go into the stall with no sign. Everybody just loved the idea, had so much fun with it. I got a whole roll of toilet paper with people's writing on it saying how much they liked it. Whole roll.
That's great.
It was also on the front page of the New York Times, front page of the Wall Street Journal, Newsday, a full page in Life magazine with me standing on a toilet seat, king of the bathrooms, the toilet king. Also, because of this initial success, people in other cities came on board. I had a whole sales force in all major cities with office buildings, people having so much fun going out and selling it. And it was a great ride. It was a great ride. Shanti's mom was my PR person. She got me interviews on radio and television.
Yeah.
Then it came time for renewal of the contract, and went back to Harry Helmsley and sat in his office, and he said, "You did everything you said you were going to do." He said, "Unfortunately," I said, "Oh no, there's a recession." He said, "When we started this, I had a commodity that everybody wanted, office space. So I could set the rules. You don't like signs in the bathroom, so go to another office building." I got a waiting list. He said, "There's no more waiting lists. We have to fight to get tenants. My board of directors is very nervous. We can't renew the contract." So I went from the highest highs to the lowest low. That was basically the end of Project R. I went back into advertising and ended up with my own agency. I didn't have to wait to see if I was going to get a raise. I didn't have to worry about office politics. I run things the way I wanted with the people I wanted.
Because prior to that, you'd been working for other people.
Working as creative director and account executive at advertising.
So the Project R story is an amazing story. I just, as you were speaking, I realized that I created a blog post about it with some of those images, with you standing in the stall and with some of the front pages. So in conjunction with this episode, I'm going to get that blog post up and make sure that there are links there so that the listeners can see some of that. And it's so cool. It's such a great story.
I wrote the story for you also.
Yes. Yeah, I have. Yep.
It looked like a chicken.
It looked like a chicken. I have the words that you used to describe it in writing, and that's what will accompany those very cool photos. So besides being a great idea and a great story with so many interesting twists and turns and really funny moments leading to the high highs and then this low low, really want to step back from all of it. How did the end of Project R not crush you, right? Because typically when there's a high, then the bottom kind of falls out quickly. That could devastate someone pretty easily.
I was very lucky that I had a quote unquote successful career resume. I had no trouble getting back in. As a matter of fact, I doubled my salary from when I left the other place.
So when you quit your job in the midst of the rise of Project R, was there something that you said to yourself that took the edge off what other people might have been experiencing as a really big risk?
I took that risk because I needed a change.
Right.
That risk taught me that taking risk is a big adventure. It's a big adventure. If it doesn't work out, there's stuff at the other side. Okay. Your life is not ruined or over. It could only be better than it was before. It changes your attitude about yourself from being somebody who writes advertising and does commercials to somebody who is a risk taker. And that's a superhero thing.
Yeah. And within the fatalism, it's a little bit of, hey, this is going to play out how it's going to play out, but let me show up and play full out and let's just see where this goes. Was it a bit of that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I heard a lot of having fun, and those reels that you took out were fun, funny, weird, cool, attention getting, and the please don't get up. And just as you talked about earlier, making people laugh. My experience of you is that spirit is very contagious. You may be too close to it to see, but I see it as very contagious in a good way.
I hope so.
Yeah. So I know you have a couple other kind of quick hit stories that are really great. Let's talk about the one that starts with you going out to a deli.
All right. Living in New York City in the early 80s, and went to the dairy case of the deli across the street. And there was this stuff in there in a cylindrical container. And I said to the deli owner, "What's the stuff in here?" He said, "I can't pronounce it, but you've got to try the chocolate." said, all right, took it home, let it melt a little bit. I couldn't pronounce it either. It's something like Häagen-Dazs. It was so good that I couldn't believe it. This is the best dessert thing I've ever had in my life. I can't believe I never heard of this. So what I did, being an ad guy, was I put together an entire advertising campaign for this stuff. I hired a model and a photographer, did the full page ad, had it all completely finished and ready to go. Then I called Häagen-Dazs, and guy answered, and I said, I'd like to talk to the owner. He said, I'm the owner. Oh, it's good to talk to you. I said, I want you to know that I'm an ad guy and I'm an ice cream lover, and we're both really pissed off at you. And it got quiet, and he said, okay, why are you pissed off? I said, the ice cream guy is pissed off at you because you have made the greatest ice cream dessert that's ever been on the planet. And the ad guy is pissed off at you because you're not telling anybody. It's a sin. He said, word of mouth. I said, no. This is an atomic bomb of ice cream. You can't just let the word seep out. You got to tell people about it. I said, I took the liberty of preparing an ad campaign and I want to show it to you and then you could throw me out. He said, sure, come on up. Up was Bronx, New York. Went in, there's a staircase in front of you leading up to a platform where he sat, and off to the right was his wife doing the books. And next to his wife doing the books was his daughter looking at some plans to maybe open up an ice cream store. And on the left, as you came in, was a clanky old ice cream machine with some people filling these cylindrical containers. That was the entire operation. Wow. Up the stairs, hello, Howard. He said, before you show me anything, I want to tell you what I think about quality. And he gave me like a 20-minute speech about how the desire for quality does not exist anymore. And he said, I'm all about quality. Mm-hmm. He said, okay, let's see what you brought. And I showed him my presentation and he said, that is perfect. So he said, I'll never forget. He said, we're going into a chain of supermarkets on Long Island next month. And we're going to kick off our first campaign ever with this campaign. And that was the first campaign for Häagen-Dazs ice cream. So when the public first found out about it, it was not only successful, but it was so successful that it almost put the company out of business.
And what was the campaign?
Oh, what was the campaign? It showed a beautiful girl finishing off a pint of Häagen-Dazs and saying, I did it and I'm glad.
Okay.
A guilty pleasure. Nothing healthful about this. It's just high calorie, delicious, wonderful stuff.
Decadent. Mm-hmm. It's so cool that you were at the start of everything that Häagen-Dazs has become. And I know you're not saying it in that way, but I'm saying it in that way. That's really
one of the great things, as I said, about advertising.
Yeah. You went in a way that was pretty brazen, which is I'm an ice cream lover and an ad guy, and we're both mad at you. And that could have gone in any direction. What would you like the listeners to take away from the Häagen-Dazs story and the Project R story?
Go for it. That's what I'd like them to take away. You have virtually nothing to lose by going for it. If something's making you unhappy or dissatisfied, you have the power to try and change. It might not work out, so you try something again. But being powerless is what makes us unhappy. I'm in this situation. There's nothing I could do about it. My life is terrible, A, B, C, D, but you are not powerless at all. You're powerful.
I love it. And doing it while having fun. I see you do it every day. Just being grateful and looking for moments of joy. Yeah.
Same with music, by the way, as you well know.
Yes. That's a perfect transition. So thank you. We didn't rehearse that. I'm going to switch gears into the segment of the podcast that I call, it's my podcast, so there will be music. Mm-hmm. And we'll ask you what I ask all of my guests, which is if there were one song you could put in a time capsule and preserve at all costs for future generations, what would it be and why?
There was a survey done amongst all the greatest songwriters, and they asked, what's the greatest song ever written? And the vote came in as a song called All the Things You Are by Jerome Kern. And the lyrics are poetic and beautiful, and the music is gorgeous. And it's our song, Carol, and my song. So many people have recorded it, it's hard to choose the best version. Because of our personal history, carols of mine, George Shearing's version is our favorite, but Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, every singer of songs has sung that because it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And where does it transport you to specifically? Because you and I talk about the power of music to hit you at a soul level. So what does it do for you at a soul
Gives
level?
you a feeling of being in love.
Yeah.
That's what it gives you. Everybody loves something or somebody, or maybe more than one, but somebody special. You think about that person
Yeah.
when you hear that song.
Yeah. That's a very powerful access point, and I look
Yes,
forward
yes.
to adding that to the playlist. Tell us more about what you've created in the world and where people can find out more about you.
Well, that's easy. My website is rondavidgold.com and everything's on there. I'm very proud of my first novel, which was published last year. And it's something that I had been having in my mind for many years. It wasn't until I retired that I had a chance to write it and concentrate on it.
One of my earliest memories is you talking to me as a very young child about the premise for that
Yeah.
book. What's the premise for that book?
It's a what if science fiction novel, like Jurassic Park was a what if. So this what if is what if a woman could take a pill, start the reproductive process by taking a pill, and 9 months later have a girl baby who would be a cell by cell reproduction of herself? How would that change the dynamics of the world and the future and everyday life? And
Yeah.
how would it affect politics, religion, day to day?
Yeah. So you have that, and then you have the book that you wrote with Carol.
That's right. Carol was the top salesperson for her division of Time Warner for 20 years in a row. And people would ask how she got to do that. And I said, we have to figure out how to tell people about how you do that. And that turned into a book, and it got published by the American Management Association. And we did seminars all over the country. The book was translated into 3 other languages. That was a great adventure for the both of us. So it's a good.
All right. So the website is rondavidgold.com, and you'll find the books there, and you'll get to learn more about my dad. And I'm just so proud of everything that you do and who you are in the world. And you not only are such a great friend and advisor, but really someone that I just want to emulate as much as possible every day. And I'm just so grateful you're here. I love you with all of my heart. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your zen and your optimistic fatalism and your kind heart and your goofy sense of humor with me and the listeners.
You're making me tear up in a really good way.
Oh,
I love you.
I love you too. Sending you all of my heart through the wonders of technology. All right, everyone, that brings this episode of Stories We Haven't Shared to a close. I believe stories are our humanity waiting to be shared, and listening makes it possible. Thanks so much for being here today by our virtual campfire. Until next time, and so much love to my dad.